Thanks for choosing the floor without the coffee and snacks. So we're happy to have you down here. My name is Katie Myrie, and this is Hannah Bernhardt. Um, we're here to talk about marketing today. So I'm just going to pass out a couple more pages.
So the handout that we're passing out now was supposed to be in your binder. It's like an example of the form filled out, and then you also have a blank one that you can work on yourself. And I guess I'll introduce myself a little bit more. So I'm Hannah Bernhardt, and I own and operate Medicine Creek Farm, which is actually just like 15 minutes south of us here. And I raise grass-fed beef and lamb and pasture pork, and market it all online through my website and just do direct sales and deliveries.
I'm not a farmer. I work with farmers in farmers markets all across the country and specifically here in Minnesota to help build better sales strategy, which mostly relates to online because I think that's sort of a newer and developing option for farmers. So it's a problem that I've thought a lot about and worked with a lot of growers in trying to crack this nut. So maybe before we start, we can just get a show of hands. How many of you have looked at, and this is not me putting you on the spot, how many of you looked at the pre work at all? Okay. A handful of you. So before we started, we just wanted to kind of ground it in some norms about this conversation of marketing because it can be a very overwhelming more okay. Can be a very overwhelming topic if you're new at it. So we have some just kind of core principles. We want you to think about being protective of your time. You're farming. We want marketing to complement that. Um, we want you to be open to trying something new. We want you to be honest with yourself about what you're good at and what you need some work on. Ultimately, we want you to be really curious about this process. Curious about who you're selling to and how you can reach new folks.
I think we also really want it to be like interactive and helpful to what your specific needs are. So instead of us just like throwing information at you, we really want you to be telling us what you're curious about and what your specific challenges are. So don't be afraid to interrupt and raise your hand. And I think we also want to start by kind of getting a sense of some of these questions we put in the pre work. And I guess we also want to know how you guys want to interact. Would you rather be talking as a group to us and us responding, or would you like to break out and sort of talk through some of this pre work together? Any opinions? Yeah, you want to hear everybody? Okay,
Yes.
cool.
So we're not going to work through all five of these, but we do think there's one question on here that would be a good starter, and that's the question number 3: Who is your ideal customer? So we want you to get inside the head of this person that you dream of as your ideal customer that's buying from your farm. What are they like? How do they buy from you? How often do you talk to them? How much do they spend with you? Does anyone have any kind of thoughts to get us rolling? There's no wrong answers, just kind of how do you think about who your customer is?
And also maybe state what you're currently selling, what kind of farm you have. Um, and I'll also preface it by saying, like, sometimes this question seems really silly because you think, like, well, no one, ideal customer is going to always be my customer. But trying to hone in on who this person you might imagine what's going to help you figure out what your value proposition is. So just play along with the exercise, even though it might feel silly.
So during the pandemic, we started produce of the week boxes where people could sort of jump in and try a box. And we started to have repeat customers. So that could kind of tell us like who might be interested in that kind of box or if they might convert to being a customer next year. Um, and for our farm, the majority of people that sign up are women as they're doing the grocery shopping for their household. Um, and we also use MailChimp for our newsletters.
and MailChimp is a little creepy,
Mm.
and they collect information on your customers. Um, and I think it says our ideal customer is between like the age of 35 and like 60. So we do use Instagram a lot, but I think we get more sales or leads through Facebook, which is too bad because we don't we don't interact on Facebook, but we still have a Facebook page.
So you're bringing up a really good one, age, right? And gender. So women shopping for their households. But think about the difference between a 35-year-old woman and a 60-year-old woman, right? Big difference in interests, big difference in shopping needs. So, our work together and your work in marketing is to really sort of segment out these two groups. So, what does a 35-year-old woman want as my customer? Is it the same product as a 60-year-old? Can we bring these age groups even smaller than what MailChimp has for us? And how do we get that information? So just some thoughts on that. Thank you so much for sharing. Anybody else?
I raise lamb, and I also contract graze for pay and do some wool value added products. But when I think about lamb meat, it's really like the 60, 65-year-olds who are well established in their life, probably retired, maybe grandparents, but they have an interest in food and also sustainability. So they might be like an MN350 member or an LSP member who doesn't farm but is like very interested in environmentalism.
What was the last word you said? Interested in.
Environmentalism, yeah. I think for a lot of sustainable farmers, that's a good one. But it's also good to think about like, yeah, what organizations does my ideal customer belong to? And part of that is just to really understand your customer, but part of it is like that is also a marketing strategy. It could be a tool to actually specifically try to reach out to LSP members. Anybody else?
One thing I do want to flag with that too is you brought up interests, which is a really big one, right? We're not only people who eat food. We have other hobbies, we have other interests, other community groups we're a part of. A big key you got to unlock or that helps you when you're finding these customers is what else are they interested in that might be adjacent to farming and food. I think Hannah, you've gone through that journey. Maybe you want to share just a second about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, one thing that comes to mind for me is that we started doing hip camp and renting out a camper trailer on our farm, and that really helped me to hone in on who that ideal customer is, to see who's interested in that too. And so it's not just like, on general Airbnb who might show up to rent a space. It's like these are really specific people. These are people who love the outdoors, who love animals, who like to camp, who are interested in where their food comes from, but also in cooking it. So those are a few things.
Cool. Great. I think. Emily, did you have your hand up?
I was just going to say, we found out that we have a CSA farm as well near Duluth, and I found out that most of our members drive Subarus, and most of them are female, and most of them, yeah, similarly between the ages of like 30 to 65, I would say. We have like a contingent of 65-year-old women that are like our top fans. They actually are the most interactive members, the ones that are contacting us
Yeah.
about recipes and, you know, saying thanks for the box, the arugula was great or whatever. And then we have this other contingent of younger, sort of maybe just got out of college, just starting a family, or, um, people that are interested in supporting the sustainable food thing as well. Yeah. So we do have these two different segments. The Subaru is such an awesome cue because they've done all that work, right? Like,
Right.
What are people with Subarus interested in? They want to go hiking. They are more active typically. You can look at some of the parallels and maybe you tailor your recipes towards vegetable based trail food, right? And maybe you've done some of that connection. We also found out that everyone really likes our dog. So they want to see more pictures of our dog in our newsletter. And
funny because recent Subaru commercials are all about like
Yeah.
dogs and dogs with injuries. That's the thing. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's your one takeaway from today is more dog footage on the social media channels. Definitely. Yeah.
Does anyone else feel like they have no idea who their ideal customer is or has a question about it? Yeah.
I've been trying to get more local people. We live in Schaefer, so I'm trying to get more people in Chisaro County to participate in our CSA. And um, I posted on Nextdoor recently, and I know that the area that we live in is sort of more like hardworking blue collar people, and not everyone has a garden or wants to garden. So I said, buy the produce that's worth your money. Like, don't keep going to the local grocery store where everything comes from everywhere else. Like, our stuff will be better and it'll be fresher and it'll last longer and it'll be worth your money. And 11 people liked it, so that was good.
It's great. Yeah.
So I've been farming for a few years now, mostly like very, very small scale of poultry and very limited hoofed animal like goat and I really have a hard time nailing my clientele because like I'm Somali American and people in the cities, they often say, oh, we can't afford organic food. And I don't even know where to market otherwise. So it's the challenge I've been running into.
Thanks for sharing that. We'll definitely try to talk a little bit about that goal. And there was another question maybe.
And what is the income bracket of your customers?
Yeah.
Do you do any research on that?
Yep. Just for the recording, looking at the income bracket of your customers.
Learning curve to figure out how to buy from a farm like mine if you're transitioning from the grocery store. But also an element of my ideal customer is that they are responsible in the fact that when they commit to purchasing a quarter beef from me, that they're responding to my emails in a timely manner, that I'm able to connect with them for their cut sheet in a timely manner, and that they're picking that up as well. So there's a certain amount of hand-holding I'm willing to do in the beginning, but it's not something that I'm able to do with my ideal customer year after year.
Agreed. That's a huge one for me. And it's even gotten to the point where it's like I can focus in and say my ideal customer doesn't call me on the phone with a million questions. My ideal customer goes to my website and finds the information that's there. Yeah.
And maybe you are a phone talker. Totally cool. You just got to know that about yourself, right? Know your strengths, know where your energy is drained. And that's a key one for Hannah, how she set up systems to prevent that energy drain.
So, sort of comment, half question. The ideal customer is sort of, we've been talking about sort of who we've been appealing to, but you're now talking about like tailoring it to what you actually want to deal with. Like I was thinking about in the pre-work, I was thinking about who is your ideal customer, and I was comparing actually the sort of younger, maybe still at the university demographic that's like very interested in organic food and like has a ton of questions about the farm, but realistically, like when they come to the farmer's market, they buy like one thing.
Yep.
Because they don't have a lot of money and they don't have a whole family to feed. So then trying to think about like my ideal customer buys a lot. Like I want them to buy more in one go, or like I want it to be a restaurant that's buying like a bulk amount, and trying to think how can I appeal to that. And even though I love the young people who are interested in, like, I can't hit my bottom line with just those people.
Yeah.
So think about that.
Thank you. Yeah, and some of that is, we're trying to influence younger consumers, right? That's part of our food movement work, and that may be something that you strategically think about a little bit and say, how can I interact with these younger people, and how can I be in network with them and have, an option for them to buy something that matches my needs as a business. And that gets back to this, everyone is my customer idea. It's not that this ideal customer is your only customer. You're going to have a bunch of different people with that don't necessarily have much in common.
But I think the exercise of thinking about who that person is helps you start the process of thinking of boundaries and start narrowing in on how you're going to talk about your farm, to anchor yourself in one community demographic rather than just saying, and I sell local food and it tastes great and it's awesome. Yes, those are all givens. We know you all are very talented at growing, but how can we take that next jump up? And that's sort of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and that is also like being protective of your time, because if you're going to spend time marketing and you're going to invest your time and energy in that, we want it to be like the biggest bang for your buck. So let's think about focusing on that ideal customer who is going to spend that biggest chunk of money.
You can move on. Um, so yeah, so Hannah mentioned the word value proposition, which may be something that you've heard of, maybe you've never heard of it. I like to call it your secret sauce, right? Like what makes you the farm that your customers say, I love these guys. They grow great stuff. They invite me to pizza events on their farm. They've got a cute dog and they have Subaru parking VIP, right? Like there's something that helps them connect with you very specifically. Does anyone take a crack at this? What do they think their secret sauce is? That thing that makes them, you know, unique either as a farmer or next to other farmers? A good example of this is a custom CSA, right? That might be someone's value proposition or secret sauce. I think Star, a good example is you are the only aggregate CSA box in Duluth. You have multiple farms, right? That's huge. That's really unique.
I'm definitely still building my little secret sauce kind of over time. But one thing that my husband and I do for our CSA members is we have set windows of time where we do pickups and people meet us at a certain location and we're there for half an hour so people can see both of us. We make ourselves available face to face and we have conversations with everyone every week. So I think that is something that's really special. And we let our CSA members know that we're going to be there for them and that we can answer their questions and talk about the food one-on-one, like in that space. So I think that that's really special for us.
That's fantastic. And that is a service, right? A value that you are providing and they are paying for through the product. So another example of making sure that your time is accounted for within the business model. And that's something that you say, what makes us different is we sit down and talk to you. You don't just know my name, you know about me, and we get to know each other through seasonality. So it's great.
Yeah, and your ideal customer is really someone who absolutely wants to know their farmer on a personal level.
That's something that we've focused on. We've purposefully limited the size of our CSA so that we have 50 members, that we can actually get to know them. We know their names. They know us. It's a value for us to build this community of people around us. And hopefully our ideal customer are the ones that interact with us, that are sort of responsive and, they respond to our emails, they read our emails, they know our story, and they want to be a part of the farm. We don't really want to attract more customers that don't really care about the farm or don't care about being part of it. So it's nice when they actually become more involved. And I also just want to offer a counter to that. I am the opposite customer. Like I want to have communication on a need to know basis with my farm. I want them to be farming in the summer. So there are people on all sides of the spectrum. There are people that really want that. And probably the majority of CSA customers do want that. But if you aren't comfortable with that, that's also okay. Like you got to think about where you fit in the spectrum of, do I want to open my home to customers? Do I want them to come to my farm? If you're not comfortable with that, that's also okay. But you have to really be clear about these things. So you can make a plan that maximizes your benefit.
If you hear me sneezing, I don't have the plague. I just have bad allergies. Sorry. So I came from collective cultures. I was born in Northeast Africa, Somalia, and then was adapted to France. And both those communities that I grew up were heavily agriculture. organic, the old traditional way. Now we call it organic. One thing that I really miss is the community side of it. So when I was a kid, we will go to this farm that we got basically everything we needed, most of it, exception of flour and that kind of stuff. So like, this was in France. He had community group days where like the Muslim community will come and butcher that day and have a camping on the side. He had the Catholic sisters where I was boarding school. The day they come and process their pigs that he raised for. As a kid, I never had a store-bought strawberry until I came here. You went big, you big. So we will come back with a half-empty basket because we ate most of it and say, yeah, I baked it. And to this day, it's the best strawberry I've ever tasted. Okay. But also other farmers helped each other. So when he had that big, and also he hired the people, like his customers' children, because the municipality subsidized in France, where I grew up, ninth grade and actually fifth grade and up, you can do what's called apprenticeship. Is the apprenticeship here, I think, and we don't have counties, we have municipalities or state. They will collectively pay the farmer because they know you're not going to get your money worth a 14-year-old or a 12-year-old, but they want that you put them to work, quote unquote, have them weed, have them big, have them experience that summer, help you make cheese, whatever. So he had a succession planting and stuff, and I worked for him 5 years in a row. And it's best again experience. So here I feel like again is United States is very heavily in capitalism and is very egoism, like it's mine and you stay away kind of thing. Like people don't collectively help each other like other farmers. At least, yeah.
Well, I think it's a good thing to think about though, that's, that was valuable to you, right? That was your experience. Yeah. And so that's what you're going to try to develop. And knowing that is your secret sauce, that you want to develop that community, is going to help you tailor your marketing plan. And we'll talk more about the tools too. Sure. Okay. So now we're going to get into a little bit of more of the like specific tools you can use. I mean, some of them are going to be pretty obvious and I'll kind of go quickly. But if you have specific questions about these tools as we're going through, please ask. So the main question is like, how are your customers finding you already? One thing that I think is super important is to be asking that to every person who contacts you. How did you find out about us? And I actually do that. Like, this is a screenshot from an email I sent. So no matter what they're contacting me about, the first thing I say is like, thanks for reaching out. How did you hear about us? And then I answer their question or get into it. So that's like super valuable information. And that can help you figure out where your ideal customer is coming from.
Just by a raise of hands, how many of you can confidently say the majority of my customers find me through X? Yeah. Okay. An area to think about.
Yeah, and I can say that for myself, it's actually changed over time. Like when I started, it seemed to be coming from, word of mouth, some flyering. And now as I've grown and I have a bigger social media following and I've done more work on like my search engine optimization, now most of my contacts are coming from people Googling me. So that's a big change.
Before we go to websites, I also just want to mention that sheet that I passed out. We're sort of going through it as we talk today. So we've already talked a little bit about target market, right? Who is that person? And now we're on to what am I using to reach that person? And we'll sort of loosely go through that plan. And ideally, this is something that you can use as a tool to organize your thoughts after. So just want to flag that.
Yeah, and I think again, we just wanted to point out like focus on what you're good at. You're not going to have time to do everything. So we'll lay out these tools, but you might pick one that you think you can work on a little bit more. There are some non-negotiables in this day and age if you're doing online marketing, but again, that like use your time wisely. So this is my website. I think, the things that I've really focused on, that I think are the most important for especially beginning farms is absolutely have a picture of yourself. So many times when I go to farm websites, there's no photo of the person, the farmer. And sometimes it's even like, they're saying like, I am this and we are this, but you still don't know who that person is. I think that's the key thing most people are looking for. If you don't feel comfortable like writing your own bio, I always recommend like having a friend or a family member write it for you and then kind of edit from there. Um, but do that. And then, so my order page is like, it feels super long and probably most people would say it's like too much text for a normal website. But because my ideal customer is someone who is capable of following instructions, reading and figuring out how to order online, order a custom, half or whole, I just want to make sure that like all of the information is there. Every question they could possibly have is answered there in detail. What are they going to get? Pictures of what they're going to get, how the ordering process is going to work, when I'm going to contact them, when they have to fill out their cut sheet for the butcher. Like it's all there. They don't have to email me and ask me those questions because it's already on my website. Yeah.
So what I love about Hannah's website, we're just gonna praise Hannah a little bit here. It's simple and you know exactly what you're getting, right? The first look, you see Hannah's value proposition. She's got passionate animals. She's a regenerative farmer. She cares about ethics and she cares about humane practices. And if I want to know more about any of the details, I can look at, do I want to know more about the farm, the farmers, the animals, puppies? See, there's your dog content, right? There's ways to get a lot of information out and still make it simple and very clear. And that's it's an iterative process, takes a long time. How many versions of your website have you had?
I don't know how many.
100, right? And you're going to get an email from a customer with a question you didn't expect, right? Then you bake that into the website. You make changes and you grow with your customer base. You don't have to get it right the first time.
And then this is a website of my friend Melissa Driscoll, who has Seven Songs Organic Farm in southern Minnesota. And just as an example of like a very different farmer. So she's a organic vegetable farmer. She does value added products and she sells wholesale. And so we just wanted you to see like different examples. But the number one thing you see when you go to her website is like a picture of her standing in her ginger. And that totally, answers the question, who is my farmer? What is she like? She has a very detailed bio about her history and what makes her passionate about growing strange and different vegetables, which I think is important. She has some really clear ways to contact her and like say she's looking for collaborations, ask me to grow this weird thing I've never tried before. I'm willing to do it. She has testimonials, which I think go a super long way in speaking to the next customer you're looking for.
I will also say, like, her value proposition, right? If you know Melissa, you know that this photo is a great representative of her personality. And you start to get to know her by seeing this photo. It's an intentional photo. And the fact that she's growing ginger, that alone is a value proposition. Because how many farmers do we know that are growing ginger in Minnesota? It's a very short list. She's the only one I know of, I guess. And yeah, and there's different types of customers that she's after, and there's very clear instructions on how she wants to interact with those customers. It's open-ended, right? It's not a list of products that they can buy right away. But email me, start the conversation. I'm open to growing interesting varieties. This is an example of my partnership with Serious Jam. Do you have something similar in mind? Let's work together. Before we move to this, anyone have questions on website?
So, like, Most people, when they starting out or even after a few years, cannot afford to hire a web designer. Do you have any resources where people can do adequate, hire somebody for reasonable or get a grant to do adequate website?
I can speak specifically to the Minnesota Department of Agriculture has an e-commerce grant that pays, I believe it's a 50% cost share for implementing an e-commerce website, for taking photography for your website or your products, and for actually doing the web design. Um, I think there could be other creative ways. I mean, building community is one thing that's really important to you. Maybe you can reach out to a local community college and see if there's someone who's would like be willing to work on it in exchange for something or as a school project. Like, try to think along those lines.
I also want to say I feel very strongly that farmers should have an active relationship with their website. So rather than saying, I'm going to hire somebody on a one-off basis to do this, spend some time in the off season working with some of the tools. There's so many great resources that we can send to you. I want to get your contact information that are very flexible web development sites that don't require technical abilities. They're templates that you just plug your information into. And they help serve as sort of a starting place. And then you make tweaks and you learn and you get comfortable with it. So then next time somebody asks you that question by email, you can pop into your website and make that change yourself. And that's going to be cheaper in the long run. And some of these sites are, $200 a year. It's not crazy. But at that time is the part of investment. And that might be a December, January project, right? There's a couple. Yeah.
I found a resource at the Small Business Development Center for free. You can take a class on enterprise marketing. They have college interns do market analysis for you to find out what your demographics might be. All the information you need, the Dunn's category, things about how to market and the value proposition, a whole bunch of stuff, and it was free. You just had to apply. It was just one of those free opportunities that we can do. And it's good.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
The Small Business Development Center, SBDC.
There's one other, was it a question over here?
Just a comment or suggestion along those lines of community support and how farmers could work together, in a cooperative arrangement. If there's a farmers co-op like Shared Ground who can have a website, and then participant farmers can have, a page or something on that website so that they're acknowledged and they have connections there, but it's not their responsibility to generate this whole online presence, which is really an overwhelming kind of responsibility or burden for a lot of farms, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that in this day and age, a website is kind of a non-negotiable, but you're right. If it's not your strength, find someone who strength it is to help you. I agree. There are like easier websites to update than others. So, research that and figure out what you feel comfortable with. You don't have to be updating it all the time, but you need to be able to, know how to do that or have the resource for someone to do it for you. So this is kind of next level, but search engine optimization. I mean, we wanted to offer you guys some things that maybe you haven't done yet. Has anyone worked on SEO on their website at all? A little bit? Yeah. So this is one that definitely, it wasn't something I knew until I got into farming and marketing my farm. But it has made a big difference. And I think on here it shows, this little graph on the side was like a marketing company had put together this graph about the most important places where people are finding you. What channels should local businesses spend more time on? Number 1 was their website, and number 2 was actually Google My Business. So if you don't have a Google My Business account, that's probably the number 1 thing I would do. And this is gonna boost your search rankings when people are Googling you. It also puts you on Google's map there on the right. And it's actually really simple. It's free. It's like signing up for a Gmail account. You can input your own pictures. There's like, the hours when it's closed, your contact information. People can then also give you those little stars by just going and rating you. Find some customers who already support you and email them and ask them to rate you there. And all of this is going to boost your ranking. And really what that just means is, I typed up there grass-fed lamb near me. And, think about what people are going to be Googling to find you, what your ideal customer would search for.
And even a stretch goal with that is getting your customers then to rate you on Google, right? Then you show up even higher because you're getting beat out right now by a grass-fed cattle company.
Well, that was something, a realization for me was like when you have the name of your product in your name, Google finds you first. And so that's why I actually added my products afterwards, and that totally boosted me up. Now, there's some debate about whether or not you're supposed to do that, but I did.
We won't tell.
It's not illegal or anything. It's just like some marketers would say, oh, that's like watering down your brand. But in my situation, I felt like it was more important to have people finding me. So here's more Google My Business. And so you can see there's even a place to like, if you are already selling things online, you can add it here too. That's just like when people find you, they Google you, they find you, they're seeing pictures of your products. It's just like the more information you can put there, the more they're going to get, interested, sucked in. Most of it just links through to my website and where they can buy on my website. So it's not like a special e-commerce site, but it's just like fill out Google My Business is my recommendation. And then it also might seem pretty basic, but online directories are a huge way to boost your search engine optimization. So one of the ways SEO works is that the more places on the internet your name is linked to your website, the higher your search ranking is on Google. So if you have a bunch of different directories that all list your information and link back to your website, that's like telling Google that you're a real business, you're a real company, people care about you, and then they boost your ranking. So it's like super easy. Do the free ones. Yeah. So the question is, what do I mean by directory? So some of these ones I put up here are like Local Harvest is a free one. It's just like a free service somebody created. The Minnesota Grown Directory is a paid one. That's through the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. You are basically paying to be a licensed member. They put you in their online directory. And then they also do prints and they hand those out around the state. It's like free marketing from MDA. I put on a couple of others like Wisconsin Local Food Locator. Practical Farmers has a local food directory. There are others, there's like Wild Harvest. Some of them are paid, some of them are free. Some of them are like new and popping up all the time, especially with the pandemic. So you might be able to find even more. Open Food Network, there you go. Yeah. Were there any other things about directories or any other ideas or things other people have done? That's a great point. Yeah, because when Star mentioned that one, I was like, oh yeah, I've done that one too. And you're right. I can't remember all of the ones I've done anymore either.
Yeah. For the recording, they're talking about tracking all of the directories you're a part of.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to comment too. Anytime you get yourself featured in an article or newsletter publication, those things make sure they're linking it back to your website as well.
Yeah, that's right. And that's making me think of too. I mean, Katie and I talked a lot about how there are some things like you don't need to do, but if you like subscribe to a marketing, something teaching you marketing, they'll always tell you like, oh, you need to have a blog. And what I would say is like, not every farmer needs to have a blog. If you don't have time for a blog, don't worry about a blog. But if you're trying to up your SEO, having a blog that's updated regularly is another thing that will boost your rankings. So that's usually why people tell you to have a blog. One way that I like kind of get around that is like, I do not create new content for a blog, but when I post something to my Instagram, most of the time, 2 months later, I go back and put it on my blog on my website. So it's like when I have time to update my website, I will update that blog and like backdate it. And that's constantly telling Google that you're an active website, that you're not dead content, that you're fresh and new, and you should be at the top of the search. Social media is a big topic. So
Why don't you just share what's worked for you?
okay.
Oh, sure.
regularly. And as I started to learn more about SEO, I was wishing that I had instead written a monthly blog that then got pushed to my customers through MailChimp as an email, where I have always created my email newsletters in MailChimp, and I haven't found a way to reverse that where that would be pushed to as a blog on my website. Is there anyone who is doing a blog post that then it also serves as their like email communications to their customers as well?
I was just thinking about that, Tamara, and I think if you're able to copy and paste, that's probably your best option. I know, but you'd have to look on MailChimp because you can do video and all kinds of stuff on MailChimp now, but yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's like Squarespace is adding all of these integrations now, and now you can do your newsletters directly through their website. And I think there is that blog integration at this point, but some of these things come along after we've created all our networks. So, yeah.
I was just whoa, that's louder than I thought. I was just gonna note that I think that's a good idea because I tried to do a blog. It just didn't happen. So now I'm probably just not gonna try because I just know I don't have time for it. But thinking about that for the newsletters is the idea too of like, is your newsletter a product? Like, is that something special that you don't want to be giving out for free? It's something to consider. So like, I know that some CSA farmers feel like part of the CSA product you're getting is a really well done newsletter with all these special recipes. And I don't necessarily want to just like blast those out because then they're giving away a product for free, basically. So it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
We can go to email then.
Yeah. We could jump ahead to email. I guess one thing to just say is like social media is really important in this day and age, but there is a lot of argument that email newsletters are actually more effective and more important. So I would never say don't do social media. Social media is a great way to connect with your customers and build relationships and retain customers. But I would say that for most of us who have hyper local businesses, finding your customers through social media is going to be, probably less, or you're going to have to put a lot more work into it than say collecting an email newsletter at your farm stand at the farmer's market. Like that's someone who's already interested in you. They've approached your stand. If you can engage them in conversation, if you can incentivize them to sign up for your newsletter, that is free marketing information. So I would prioritize that over, wondering how well my social media content is like being captured by the algorithm.
I have 2 thoughts that I want to add. One person who filled out the survey asked about Facebook algorithms. And my comment to that is that I don't know, but it's a really tricky work, right? This is why there's professionals that just specialize in social media promotion. But what I would say is Facebook is a great tool to use very targeted geographic paid posts. And to do that, you need to know exactly who you're trying to reach. So the closer you can get to that target market will help you decide whether I want to invest in the Facebook marketing tool whether that is a viable channel. Are my people on Facebook? Are they on TikTok? Are they on Instagram? Like those are the questions that you need to ask about your target market before you spend so much time spinning your wheels making a great Instagram account. That I think for Hannah's business, it's been, how do I keep in touch with the people that love to buy from me but might forget about me every couple months and they need a reminder? And she's got great content, so that's a good example of what you could look for.
Yeah, and I will also say though too, like if you try to follow the experts who say like, grow your social media following, have 1 million followers, you're probably not going to have the time to be that person as a farmer. You're too busy farming. So again, like try to figure out what is most important for you and focus your time there. So for me, I really only do like 1 post a month on Instagram, but I'm posting me doing my chores and interacting with my animals on the stories every day because that's easy for me. I just can record it as I'm feeding my dogs. And I get a ton of customer interaction that way. I have people who are obsessed with my animals. They're messaging me, I'm messaging back, and it doesn't take a lot of time for me. Most of the time, it's just like smiley faces and thumbs up. But a lot of times people ask me questions and I'm happy to like talk about the animals. Like I love that part of interacting with my customers. But I don't have like a fancy schedule of what I'm posting and I don't spend all my time on that. If that's what you're good at, if you're really organized and you love coming up with content, spend your winter like prepping that for your busy season.
And there's a lot of creative ways to think about how you show up on your feed, right? One of the questions that was also in the survey was, I don't like to get in front of the camera. How can I do that? What about the boots that you're wearing, right? Can you like make a campaign where every week you post your like a photo of your muddy boots at various places on your farm? Maybe it's your outfit, the jackets, the layers that you're wearing at different points of the season. There's ways to sort of build that relationship with people without like you taking a selfie, because Hannah's got great selfie energy. I don't. I'm really awkward, right? So you got to know yourself and know what's going to help you connect with your customer. There's a guy in the Twin Cities that has made thousands of dollars just by taking like a photo of his body from here down with his boots, and then he also does watches. It's like for silly, right? But if you can connect those kinds of approaches to what feels right for you, that's a good fit.
Yeah, and I also feel like social media is where like authenticity is really important. Like people want to know who you actually are, and they can tell if you're just like trying to find canned content and so when I do post, like I want it to actually be saying stuff that like I really care about, and usually it's pretty long too. And I feel like that makes up for not doing 3 posts a week. Because then I do get a lot of comments and I do get a lot of back and forth and interaction. I think we do it in this next part. Yeah. Does anyone, yeah, we should also just say, does anyone have any like social media stuff they want to share or feels like helpful to other people or questions?
We started doing Friday farm updates. So on Fridays, we just take the photos from the week, and there's usually a video. Instagram loves videos now. just so you know. Um, and then that's a nice recap for everyone. So we're not constantly posting every single day.
Yep.
And I love that because it helps you build a habit, right? Like I'm remembering to do this on Fridays, so I'm not letting it slip. And consistency is critical to getting a relationship built with customers.
Yeah, and also there's a lot of people who will say like social media shouldn't be your number one sales channel. Like the focus really should be building the relationships. It's okay if every once in a while you're posting a sales post, but really it's more about your customer wants to know about your daily life. They want to see the animals. Whatever that reason is they're connecting with you, like give them that in your social media.
And I will also say Barn to Door is a good resource aside from their products that they're selling you. They've done a lot of research on e-commerce and they make that very accessible for free to farmers who especially are interested in their products. And they say that social media should have a balance of education, entertainment, and e-commerce, right? So you're not just using it as a sales channel. You're using it as a way to entertain people. So cute pictures, right? Education is, wow, this part of farming really sucks. Here's your window into it. this is something new about pasture raised pork that you may have never known. So you're engaging them on multiple levels. And that's where having a plan really fits in, is how can I strategically balance so I'm not, clogging with the same kind of content and really, rounding it out for people.
And so, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I guess just to build off that, I've been, actively frustrated by the sales just don't happen on Instagram, which it's for me, Instagram is the easiest thing to update because just take a picture, do a quick description, and I've discovered I'm not going to do a blog, but I will maybe do an Instagram post. But it really isn't sales for the most part. So the relationship building is important, but yeah.
Yeah, you might just have to think about it differently. Like the reason you're doing it might be different than you thought.
And put yourself into those shoes, right? Do I use Instagram? If you're an Instagram user, do I use it to buy local food? No, it's an entertaining thing. I might be promoted a product that then I leave Instagram to go purchase. So think about it, how these other companies are positioning themselves too, and how users are interacting with it. And that will likely change as the app changes too. So yeah, good comment.
I mean, if you're thinking about your ideal customer, and if that's an older person, they probably aren't going to be on Instagram.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that is why we talked about target customers first, right? They dictate your path. They dictate how you make decisions.
Are you finding alternatives to some of the, standard social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, that kind of thing? Are there emerging, markets for that we could use, especially if I'm starting from scratch, don't use Facebook or Instagram, but I know I need to build that into my marketing plan?
We're sort of going to talk about some other options that are more community based if you're not as comfortable with the social media. But I would say Kyle and Emily are great examples of how they've started their social media pre-sales. So they've been inviting people to see their Instagram content on their farm without selling them a product. Like, this is the setup, this is the infrastructure we're building. These are the projects we're working on. We can't wait to sell you something, but we're working on the rest first. So as early as you can, start building those relationships. Instagram is a great asset for them. Yours might be something else. And you can choose just to do one at first and start really building some momentum and then branch out. Do you have any?
Yeah. I mean, there are some farmers who only do YouTube and have become big YouTube sensations, but do you have that time? Is that where you see yourself? So, yeah, I would just investigate them and see which one feels like the most comfortable and intuitive to you. And again, maybe social media isn't what you want to focus on. But also, I feel like I would want to have a more detailed conversation about who you are and what you're doing to kind of help with that. Yeah, so I mean, expansion is how are we going to grow this? I assume a lot of you already have customers, and one thing you're struggling with is how do I find new customers? Some of that will be updating your SEO and, finding people finding you through search rankings, but there are other really more classic ways you can do. I mean, word of mouth, you can do a promotion and say current customers, you get a discount if you bring someone new. Community relationships. I mean, think about the people who are already in your networks and again, what organizations do they belong to? Can I put up a flyer at the Land Stewardship Project? Would they let me do that on their bulletin board? Can I do that? Am I part of any churches? It seems really silly, but in the beginning, I flyered all of the food co-ops, all of their bulletin boards, right where people are leaving. And that was where I was getting the most customers in the beginning. And I couldn't believe that really worked, but it just had the little tear off, totally old school. But I think taking pictures is one thing I really like to do. So I had fun making a flyer with a picture I really liked. Oh yeah, that's the next one. So yeah, other, salons, restaurants, coffee shops. I mean, does anyone have any examples of this? My sisters are teachers, so they put them up in their teacher staff room.
CrossFit gym.
Oh yeah, I try CrossFits. But if you're a member of a CrossFit, you probably you have it in there.
Sorry, I keep
It's okay.
wandering around you. Yeah, I found over there.
So this is kind of a joke, but I'm in a very small town and next to a very small town. So people literally just pin up their business cards in the liquor store and the oil change place.
I did that too. Yeah.
Go where the people are. Yes, I will get you one.
We used to make postcards, just like half size like that. And I don't know if they worked. I think the tear up thing is a really good idea. I just never wanted to be fully committed. But I think if you're going to do something like that, you have to fully commit. Like you have to do a really good job, and make it very appealing. But um, one thing we got for feedback was that we should have a picture of ourselves on it. And so we had a picture of what one CSA box looked like because we only do it for CSA, or we did. We don't have to advertise anymore. Yay. But we would do the picture of what an example CSA box and then a picture of ourselves and then try and put that. I went to school for graphic design, so I know the rules, but put that over like a nice background and then put a slogan on it or something to motivate people to look at our website. So
Yeah, and I forgot I put up there in the corner Canva. So if graphic design isn't your thing, Canva is a super easy free app with all these templates where you can just pick a template and fit your stuff in. So you can actually make stuff like this pretty easy nowadays on your phone. You don't even have to do it on the computer anymore.
Yeah. And again, we're connecting this back to the ideal customer, right? What else do they do in their lives? Where are we going to reach these people? The organizations, churches, where are they hanging out when they're not eating our food?
And if Star wants someone to spend a bigger chunk of money, maybe that's more of like a business or I don't know, just thinking those terms.
We'll talk a little bit about strategies to stretch that too. I can talk with this one. So you're farming, you've got a CSA with, 100 customers. You think you want to get to 130. That's a lot of customers to spend half an hour with a week, right? It's a lot of customers to manage and answer questions about. So one key asset that these tools can help you with is helping you manage these customers and decide on systems that work for you. So the website, can you tweak your website to make it more helpful for a customer so they don't have to go back to you? Yeah, and I guess we've already sort of talked about this. But I think online marketplaces is probably the natural next place to go, right? How does this help start to add value to your customer base, where they're not just getting a CSA, but they're increasing their purchase. They're adding additional products from you. And maybe you want to go to email first, actually. Email is a big key to that. We actually looked at a barn to door stat today, and it said something like email is 40 times more effective to increase purchases than Facebook. So, and the way I like to think about it is, Hannah mentioned she does a annual newsletter. How often do you do email? 2 times a year. Well, how often am I buying lamb from Hannah? Once a year. How often am I buying vegetables? Every week. So think about that order cycle and how you want to set that up. And that's how you structure how often you're sending emails. And also think about that person on the other side. Are they going to spend 30 minutes reading an email every week? No, they want a reminder of who you are. They want an update on the farm, and they want a preview of what's happening for what products they can buy this week. So I would encourage you to think really carefully about what that weekly communication could look like, have a format, and just be able to add very short, concise content that matches your life throughout the season. That's how I think. Is anyone doing? Sounds like you're doing email newsletters pretty effectively.
Sales. I send out that monthly email newsletter. I'm consistent with it. I do have a range of customers who shop with me from weekly at farmers market to monthly at drop sites to annually filling a freezer of meat. So monthly is a good manageable, kind of system for me when sending out my email newsletter. And we get good feedback on it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and we already talked about sort of the capturing the email, but like again, if you're gonna work on your website this winter, work on putting more places to capture people's emails to join that newsletter. And that's like it's an audience that's already built in who wants to know about you. So you're not just spreading marketing information out there to the masses the way you kind of are with a flyer. This is like you got the person's attention. They're already curious and interested. So it's like super valuable.
And think about what your customer might be doing when they get this email, right? If I'm sending it on a Monday morning at 8:30, they're probably sitting in Minneapolis, like I'm pretending to work, I'm checking my email. Oh, I'm getting this great email from a farmer that's distracting me from the work I have to do, right? That's a fun thing to get. Think about it that way. Think about how you can connect when that is the right time for that customer, and how they're experiencing it. They're sitting at their desktop, they're reading emails, or they're on their phone, of course. But I think that's a really crucial thought to have. Like, how are they experiencing it? And that can influence what you put in it. Yeah.
So I think for me, what I struggle with is I full time off the farm working, so I get to read 300 emails a day. So I always think about like I wouldn't want to get another email, or I follow a lot of people on social media that like every post is a super long video, and I'm like I can't watch this while I'm working. So I think there's definitely a balance too of like, I mean, knowing your customer for sure. Like, are they working full time in an office setting, reading emails all day? Are they going to want to read another newsletter? Are they even checking their personal email when they get home? Or are they turning everything off and they just want a quick, Facebook or Instagram or something? So I think sometimes my hatred towards email
Yeah.
kind of taints like what I would want to do. I mean, I would love to do like a homestead blog because I do a lot of canning and, just a variety of like homesteading skills, sewing and whatever. But I used to create training material and editing things, and it's just like it's overwhelming to even think about shooting a YouTube video because I'm like, oh, the editing you're gonna have to do. So there's all these wonderful ideas, but then to me, I get kind of like stuck with what I don't want to deal with. Not even just an editing side, but like I want something quick, but I necessarily can't speak for all my customers, but I do think
Right.
there's a balance of like if you're posting videos every day that are super lengthy, you might get people just scrolling by because they're like, I don't have time to look at this. And same thing with emails. I mean, we do an email for my work to a network, monthly. You see those MailChimp stats and you're like, God, I put a lot of time into this. And then you're only getting this many clicks. And it's a group of people that have come around, the love of this thing. So you think they would read it, but then when you start getting look at the stats and maybe that's something where you start with MailChimp and then if you're not getting the numbers, do something else. But I do think there's a balance.
Yeah, I mean, the naysayer in me when I started said the same thing, like, I don't want a million emails. But the more I read the data, the more I was convinced that it works better than you think. Even if you're deleting half of those like promotions, every once in a while it's going to catch you. And that might be the time you make the order. But again, I will say, like we've said before, like if you don't have time, don't make it your focus. If it's making you pull your hair out, then that's not the channel for you. But I'll also say like, so in the beginning I sent more than 2 newsletters. I needed to build my customers in the beginning. But, in the wider like marketing world, they say that like a 2% open rate is success. My open rate right now is like over 60%. And I think that has to do with really being focused on my ideal customer. Like they see my email and they want to know. They know it's time to order and that they only get that chance once a year. And so it's both, you're right. But your ideal customer, if they really want to buy from you, are going to open that email.
And I would also say that's an opportunity to reevaluate the value that you're adding through that time you're spending, right? So if you don't feel like there's a lot of value, scale back your time, simplify it, cut out the videos. I hate opening videos and emails because I may be around somebody else and then there's the awkward noise, right? It's yeah. So you're on the right track because you're putting yourself in the shoes of somebody and you're saying, I get 300 emails. I don't want to sit and read a whole email, but maybe you want a quick photo, a quick update of the farm, and you want to put yourself outside of your office that you're in and imagine that you're somewhere else, and then close the sale, right? Like I'm gonna buy from the farm and I'm gonna be part of this, right? So simplify, simplify, simplify. And if you are making blogs on canning and homesteading, recycle that content. Take a couple lines, poach it in or put it in, and say two things you might not know about canning, right? Find ways to engage people that matches your energy and also ultimately strategically fits into the way you're trying to get them to buy from you.
Yeah, but if you are doing weekly deliveries, like that customer wants a reminder, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to miss the chance to order. So make sure you send that reminder email when the deadline's coming up.
And that's back to the monthly thing over here, right? So you're sending a monthly email maybe that has more in-depth content, a deeper like invite you into the farm, but then maybe you're adding to that a weekly reminder that's just a quick button that says reminder to place your order here. We're still here. We want to know what to bring you, right? Keep that really quick. It's an effective notification system. I'm going to see the email, I'm going to click the link, and I'm going to have it done within 5 minutes.
Yeah. So where should we start from here? There are a lot of different e-commerce platforms. I will say that MDA grant I mentioned earlier also applies for implementing one of these. So during the pandemic, I decided that my sort of time crunch was the initial placing a deposit on the order. And the way I had been doing it was always online. I was taking that order online, but I was responding to each order, sending them a link to pay the deposit and like giving them the information about their butcher date. That was just taking way too much of my time, and it was all happening while I was in the middle of lambing and calving. And so I was not giving the customer service that I felt like I should be. And people were like questioning, did my order go through? And so then I was getting double the emails. So for me, it felt like it was time to invest in an e-commerce platform where people could make that payment right away, make the sale. It was done. They knew it was confirmed. And then I didn't have to make that initial interaction. I went with Barn to Door for a number of different reasons. I think one of them is for me, it makes sense because they do variable weights in there and accepting payments. They also, I don't know why I care about this so much, but they allow tipping to cover the credit card fees, which for me, I guess was just like psychological, making the jump to doing all these online sales. I was like, I'm going to lose all this money in credit card fees. A lot of people do tip, so that makes me feel better. I don't know. I imagine a lot of you are using other platforms, and are people super interested in e-commerce platforms and the different kinds? Or yeah.
Oh, the question's about what you'd not recommend.
Yes. Because I mean, I know some of them are tailored more towards CSAs versus like being able to do a variable weight on meat is like really important. And so I've tried one and it just like was not useful. So I was curious from your guys' experience or anybody.
I would say start with cost in some ways. If you sort of, because it's proteins, right? You said lamb. Yeah. Keep it a really simple system. Even Google form is a helpful system, right? And see if your customers respond to that and see how much value it's creating and then invest more. Like, how long have you been doing online sales without an online platform?
So 5 years before I decided to go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe you two can have a better conversation offline.
And it only made sense when I got to a certain level of income. Yeah. So
Star has a thought.
The e-commerce site thing could be a whole presentation on its own, and there are a lot of good resources out there that kind of breaks down different platforms and what they're good for. The National Young Farmers Coalition has a really good breakdown, and there are some platforms that are good for CSA, some that are specifically good for custom CSA. Some, there's some really good resources out there. I will say, if you're just starting out, if you're building a website, a lot of your basic website building platforms already have a basic e-commerce structure. It's not tailored to farming specifically. So like if you need something very specific, like variable weights, it's kind of like, you can kind of like, there's like a drop down for color, and it's not worked in, but you can kind of jerry rig it. But if you're just doing pretty simple sales, like I just have like dried herbs and things. So it's just like jars of stuff. And so it's not super complicated. It's not going to go bad in a week. And so I can just use that really basic online sales platform. And I've used Wix and I've also used Squarespace, and they both have those integrated already. So I would check that on your website before jumping into, because some of them are really expensive. Some of them are like quite involved. And for me, it's way more than I need.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is why we're talking about management right now, right? Like, when are you managing so many customers that it makes sense to say, website, handle it? And that's a tough tipping point. Was it you?
What are your views about Shopify, the app?
I love Shopify. The question was about Shopify. Shopify is very powerful. I think it's even with the pandemic, it's really grown as a tool. It doesn't have some of the, if you're selling proteins, you're going to struggle with that. But amazing sales data reporting, you get a really deep level of customer data from Shopify. And there's a lot of flexible designs that are more intuitive. I don't love Wix's e-commerce. I use Wix a lot with businesses that I work with. It's not great, right? But Shopify is, it's a jump up in price. Well, it's actually not too bad. It's like $28 a month for beginners. Well, Shopify, I think they have it early, like a $30 a month, and then like an $80 a month. But I would say try it. See if you like how it functions. I'm a big fan of Shopify because it's not just farm specific, so they have a bigger market to develop features for, and that's sometimes a really good thing.
I can speak to Squarespace and Shopify. We started out using Squarespace, which I think is great. I think that would serve most farm functions. And it's really user friendly, really intuitive. That's what I liked about Squarespace. Shopify is way more powerful. It has a lot more options. But I'd say it's a little bit like you got to be a little bit more savvy to use it. I mean, there are simple functions too, but if you want to take advantage of the more advanced functions, you kind of have to like dig a little deeper in learning it. And then other reason to maybe use Shopify is if you have like a really large inventory. So the reason I switched is because we sell our greenhouse plants on our website. So we needed to be able to list like a huge inventory and have different options. And that's why we made the switch. You can also integrate it with, like if you're selling at a farmer's market or if you have a farm stand, your online sales and your in-person point of sales can be linked. That was another great reason. I think Squarespace has that ability as well now, but something to think about. So there's so much experience with this question, right? I'd encourage you over the winter to have conversations with each other about it. I think marketing is a topic that we steer away from, right? Because it feels like we're competing for the same people. It feels like, but let's normalize having that conversation and really explore it together. And we're really out of time. Do we have one more comment and then I'm going to wrap up?
Actually, it's not so much of a comment as a question. And I'm actually a web developer, but anyway, so the question is about the potential for overselling. So you have so many items available, whether it's broccoli or whatever. So how do you deal with that in an online platform? What's the best way that you've experienced? And then also, like today I have so much broccoli, but next Saturday I know I'm going to have more. So somebody, so when it comes to online, it's like you wouldn't want to sell somebody something that they needed it tomorrow. But if you knew they didn't need it until Saturday, you'd have a different inventory. So inventory level changes. Okay, so
Really tough question. Takes practice. So that is so much more about operations than the platform. And what I like to answer that question with is, number one, I have no experience doing that, and I've worked with farmers that have struggled to do that online, right? Because it's like, how do I walk through my field and know I'm going to have, the first part seems like you've nailed. You know how much you have. It's about communicating it. So what's the system and so my customers, for example, can only order from me from Thursday and Saturday every week. I'm going to keep that consistent, and I'm going to have to deal with the irregularity based on a weekly basis. So you're limiting the variables just to weekly order cycles. And if you got, and hopefully you've got storage solutions to help with that. But I would say overselling is not a huge deal. Customers understand. The farmers that I've worked with, they've had to cancel some orders and do refunds. Not the end of the world. Your customer isn't coming to you for precision. They're coming to you for a different value. So I would just, you kind of gotta wade through that and try it out and make mistakes and try to improve. And I would just suggest that you try your best to keep to that order window every week.
And just because I also know Abraham's Table Farm over here does weekly orders now too. I would talk to Joel there, who is also grappling with the same problem, and see if the solution he tried to implement this year is helping him. He added like credits to his CSA, and then allowed other people who aren't member of the CSA to order excess. I don't know if it's working for him, but just a suggestion.
Yeah, I wonder about that too with custom CSAs. How do they manage that when each customer gets to pick what's in the box, right? It's really challenging math. It's above my pay grade, right? Did you have something to say? Yep.
There's a woman out east and she's connected with like the CSA network. I don't know what that organization is exactly, but they were doing a lot of data and trying to work on precision around custom box packing. And I don't remember what platform she was using, but if you go to that network, I think you'd find out.
And then, if I have extra broccoli, can I sell it at a surplus the next week, right? Can I find other ways to market it that's not just by the head, or increase the unit size so there's less, like I'm not, doing so much work for 3 scallions, right? I'm doing higher unit sizes. That helps with that too.
Do we have time for one more?
I know people are getting a little antsy, so do we have time for one more?
Oh, Abraham's Table Farm, and Daniel over there is part of that farm.
So thank you all so much. I hope the 1-page marketing plan can serve as an example of a template. It doesn't work for everybody, but reach out to us if you have questions. Maybe me at this point, because Hannah's got farm stuff going on for the next few weeks, but we're interested in this topic and happy to talk more. So thanks again.
Thank you.